Welcome to the deep dive. We sip through the sources, pull out the key insights, and basically give you a shortcut to really getting what's going on. Today, we're tackling something, well, deeply unsettling, but really important. The tragic Air India crash in Ahmedabad. Our goal isn't just reporting facts. We want to dig into the why and the how, understand the complex layers, and find the lessons that hopefully prevent this kind of thing happening again.
Yeah, it's definitely a heavy topic, and our thoughts are obviously with everyone affected by this, but you're absolutely right. Understanding these events, tough as it is just crucial for aviation safety moving forward. It's how things get better.
Exactly. So let's start with the basic facts, the stark reality of it. June 12th, 2025. Air India flight AI-171, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, taking off from Ahmedabad, heading to London Gatwick. And what's just shocking here is the speed. Just 30 seconds. 30 seconds after lifting off, the plane lost stability, crashed into a hostile building at BJ Medical College. The human cost. Just devastating. 241 people on board lost their lives out of 242, and then 19 people on the ground as well. So a total of 260 lives lost.
That speed, 30 seconds, it's chilling.
Yeah.
And it really highlights something critical. Takeoff, even though it looks routine, is statistically the most vulnerable part of any flight.
Right.
The margins for error are incredibly small right then.
So that immediately makes you wonder, for anyone who knows how safe flying usually is, why? Why is takeoff considered so dangerous, especially with a modern plane like a Dreamliner?
Well, it's really a mix of factors that all come together right at that moment. You're at low altitude, so there's very little height to recover if something goes wrong. You're at relatively low speed compared to cruising speed, which affects how well the controls work. And critically, the plane is at its absolute heaviest, full of fuel for that long flight to London.
Ah, right. Maximum weight.
Exactly. So any issue, maybe a bit less power from an engine, flaps not set quite right, some kind of mechanical glitch, it can become catastrophic very, very quickly. Pilots just have almost no time and almost no altitude to figure it out and fix it.
Okay, that makes sense. A really compressed window. So the next vital step was finding the black boxes, right? The cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder. And they were found between June 13th and 16th. And the earlier reports mentioned possible issues with engine thrust and the flap settings.
That's right. Those were the initial flags from the data recorders.
For those listening who aren't pilots, maybe break those down. Flaps and engine thrust, what do those really mean in simple terms?
Sure. So flaps. Think of them as adjustable panels on the back edge of the wings.
Mm-hmm.
When they extend, they change the wing's shape to generate more lift, especially at lower speeds like during takeoff and landing.
Okay, more lift for slow speeds.
Precisely. So if the flaps aren't set correctly for takeoff, maybe they're retracted too soon, or maybe they didn't extend properly in the first place, the plane simply won't generate enough lift to climb safely. It could lead to a stall. Basically, the wing stops flying.
And engine thrust.
That's the forward push, the power coming from the engines. It needs to overcome drag and get the plane moving fast enough to take off and climb.
Yeah.
If you don't have enough thrust, maybe due to a mechanical issue, or maybe they weren't set correctly, the plane just can't accelerate or gain altitude properly.
Got it.
And linking that back to Ahmedabad, the early suggestion is this terrible combination.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the flaps weren't right and there wasn't enough thrust, not enough lift, not enough power, right at that critical low altitude moment. A recipe for disaster.
A truly terrifying picture of those 30 seconds. But then, amidst all this tragedy, there was this one sliver of, well, almost unbelievable news. A single survivor, a British passenger in seat 11A. How? When everything goes so catastrophically wrong, how is survival even possible?
It's exceptionally rare. Honestly, it often comes down to sheer luck and a very specific set of circumstances lining up. Sometimes being seated near the wing box area helps. That part of the fuselage is structurally very strong.
Ah, okay.
And maybe being close to an emergency exit or near a point where the fuselage breaks apart in a way that cushions the impact slightly for that specific seat. But yeah, it really depends on exactly how the aircraft gets to the ground and breaks up. It's not something you can plan for, unfortunately. Just incredibly rare.
Now, shifting focus a bit to the aftermath, the impact on the families is just immense. 259 victims identified so far. And we heard that Tata Group, Air India's parent company, set up a 500 crore trust for the families.
Yes, that's a significant amount.
What does that kind of response signify? Beyond the money itself.
Well, the financial support is obviously critical for the families, both immediately and long term.
Wow.
But it also signals, I think, a prompt acknowledgement of responsibility from the company, even while the official investigation is still underway. Providing that support, including psychological help, which was also mentioned, It's becoming, a standard best practice globally. It shows a commitment to the people affected beyond just legal
A
requirements.
human response.
Exactly. Recognizing the immense human tragedy.
This crash, awful as it is, does make us look back at India's aviation safety record. This isn't the first major incident. Many will remember the Air India Express flight in Kozhikode back in 2020. Flight IX 1344, it overshot the runway. 21 fatalities there.
That's right. And that incident, like the Mangalore crash back in 2010.
Yeah, Mangalore. That was terrible.
Terrible. 158 people died there when a Boeing 737 also overshot the runway and went into a gorge. Both of those really highlight the tight margins during landing especially.
Different phase of flight, but similar pressures.
Similar pressures, yes.
Okay.
Critical points were speed, configuration, runway conditions, especially in India with, sometimes challenging weather or shorter runways. Everything has to be spot on. Ahmedabad was takeoff. Those were landings. But it's all about those high-stakes moments at low altitude.
And going even further back, there was the Charkhi-Dadri mid-air collision in 1996. Still India's deadliest, 349 people lost.
A very different kind of incident, that one.
Completely. But how did that change things systemically in India?
Charkhi-Dadri was a brutal wake-up call about air traffic control. It wasn't mechanical failure. It was communication separation standards.
Human factors, communication.
Precisely. And the direct result was a massive overhaul. Standard English phraseology became mandatory for all pilots and controllers in India. Stricter rules for keeping planes separated vertically. Big investments in ATC technology. It forced fundamental, system-wide changes.
So, learning from tragedy, which brings us back to now. With all this technology, sophisticated planes like the 787, constant safety focus, the big question is, can crashes like Ahmedabad truly be avoided?
Avoided entirely. Maybe that's too absolute. But can the risk be continually drastically reduced? Absolutely. And that's the core mission of the entire aviation industry. The preventative measures are layered. You've got incredibly strict maintenance schedules, increasingly using predictive tech to spot potential failures before they happen.
Right. Proactive maintenance.
Then there's crew resource management, CRM training. That's all about how crews communicate, manage workload, and interact with the complex automation in modern cockpits.
Making sure the humans and the tech work together seamlessly.
Exactly. And thorough pre-flight checks are evolving too. Not just checklists, but using real-time data, maybe even AI, to flag tiny anomalies in, say, engine readings or flap sensors before takeoff.
And the regulators, what's their role?
Absolutely critical. They set the standards, they enforce them, they ensure airlines aren't cutting corners on maintenance or training to save money. Safety has to be the #1 priority, overriding commercial pressures.
So it's this constant interplay. Tech, training, oversight.
It really is. It's a whole ecosystem. Manufacturers building safer planes, airlines operating them meticulously, regulators watching over everything, controllers managing the skies, and pilots flying with incredible skill and discipline. Every incident, sadly, becomes a data point that feeds back into improving that entire system. It's a relentless cycle of learning. Look, it's totally understandable to feel worried after hearing about something like this. It's deeply concerning. But, and this is really important to remember, flying is still statistically one of the very safest ways to travel. Massively safer than driving your car, for instance.
That perspective is crucial.
It is. And every single tragedy, as heartbreaking as it is, forces the entire global aviation community to dig deeper, learn more, and make things even safer. Millions upon millions of people fly safely every single day because of this constant process of improvement and learning from mistakes.
That's a really vital point to end on. Understanding these events, even the really tough ones like Ahmedabad, it helps us appreciate the layers of safety that do work day in, day out. And it shows how every incident, tragically, drives future safety. So, maybe something to think about this week. What does this relentless drive for safety and resilience in aviation? What can that teach us about how we manage risk and learn in other complex parts of our lives? Maybe healthcare, maybe online security, something to ponder. Until next time on The Deep Dive, stay curious.